said before, delighted that Peter can be here with us tonight. I met Peter, I think, probably nearly a couple of years ago at the, if anyone's familiar with the ANLP, the Association of NLP, conference a couple of years ago. Probably when we were getting coffee, I think, it was that moment. Coincidentally, I'd booked already onto Peter's session, which was about meta model for all of you, anyone that knows a little bit about NLP and language, which was a brilliant session. As a result, I went on and then was able to do Peter's NLP Master Practitioner course, which was literally mind-blowing, absolutely fantastic. And so I'm so delighted that Peter can be here with us tonight. It's an absolute privilege and an honour to have him here. And so I'm going to hand over to Peter for his session. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see so many of you here. Nice to see some familiar faces as well. Thank you all for turning out on this January night. Thank you for setting such high expectations. So who here has already done some NLP training? So what is that, about a little more than half of you, I think. That's good. And for those of you who haven't done any NLP training at all, what you've read on the subject, or you've come across it somehow, I guess. Everyone's got an idea of what NLP is, so I'm not going to go over that. What I would like to say is that NLP isn't coaching. A lot of people do a practitioner course and they think they're a coach, and there's a whole load of stuff that you've learned as coaches that puts a framework around the coaching interaction and relationship that you don't get on NLP practitioner training. You might do if you do something like a coaching practitioner that has coaching framework tagged on top of a practitioner training, but NLP in itself was never meant to be a substitute for therapy or counselling or coaching or anything else. What it was designed to be was a methodology and a set of tools that would integrate with other approaches that have their own frameworks, like counselling, like psychotherapy, like coaching. Oh, somebody's dropped all the dinner plates out. So that was what it was designed for. So it was never designed to replace or be a substitute for coaches, but to be something that coaches can use. And therefore, for those of you who studied NLP, do you find yourself naturally using NLP within your coaching, or do you find yourself having to think about it, or coming naturally? Good. So what I wanted to do tonight was something that was going to have maybe an appeal for both people who don't know about NLP and also some ideas for people that do. So NLP, as I said, it's a methodology, set of tools that you're going to integrate into coaching practice that help you to do things that aren't actually in the body of knowledge of coaching. And actually, you mentioned a book there which is talking about sort of breaking the rules of coaching, and very much that there's elements of an NLP approach within that, where as a coach you're going to get into interactions or situations with a client where you feel stuck, or you don't know what to ask next, or you don't know what question to ask next, or or you feel like the client's going in circles, or the client's stuck maybe. And what NLP gives you is a set of very handy tools to get over those sorts of issues very quickly, so you can get back to the coaching. And I'm sure you've all had the experience, if you're starting out, or if you're asking questions around a grow kind of process, you start asking the client to come up with options, and it doesn't help them. They aren't coming up. The options they're coming up with are constrained by the very thing that's holding them back from what it is they want. And they almost get to the point where, well, if I knew what to do, I wouldn't be having a coaching session. So that kind of feels a bit frustrating at times. So in your experience as coaches, what are the kinds of common situations where, I don't know, maybe you feel a bit stuck, or you don't quite know what to do next, or you feel like there's something missing and I don't quite know how to get my hands on it, or there's something they're not telling me and I don't quite know how to get to it, or I feel like there's something holding us back and I don't know how to figure out what that is or what to do about it? What are the kind of common situations that you come up against as coaches that you would identify in that way? Sort of common issues. times when
I think sometimes when a client is concentrating so hard on performing for you that it's hard to get under the skin. Tends to be at the beginning of a relationship rather than later on. But
so they are, for example, telling you what you want to hear, agreeing to stuff, asking to be led by you, and so on. Yeah, okay, that's good. What else? What other situations do you come across as coaches where you think, there's something that's I just can't seem to get to?
Somebody who lacks confidence and they want coaching around improving their levels of confidence.
Okay. Okay, nice. What else? What about client going around in circles? And you find yourself again thinking, hang on, we've had this conversation before. Or they'll agree to, they'll come up with some actions and they go away, and when you get back the next session, how did you get on? I was busy and this thing happened and that thing, and I decided I didn't really want to, I wasn't the right, and just there's a whole load of excuses. Do you get that kind of thing? So client going in circles. What else?
Knowing what they don't want, but not being clear at all about what they do want.
Yeah, nice one. Anything else?
Changing the mind. So the goals change during
Yeah.
the conversation.
During the conversation.
Starts off somewhere and then it ends up somewhere else.
Right, okay. Nice. So what I thought I would do tonight was give you a couple of examples of using NLP within coaching, and give you at least one technique that you can use. That's a very something very simple that you can pick up and use, and also to give you perhaps a demonstration, a short demonstration of integrating NLP into coaching, and actually to see if you can spot anything happening, to see if you can spot the NLP, because it shouldn't be something where you get to the point where you think, right, now I'm going to do a technique at them. As with the whole coaching conversation, it should be seamless. So for those of you who've done, who's done practitioner training? So if you've done practitioner training, you've practiced some techniques. And those techniques involve doing strange things like waving your hands in people's faces, moving around the room and sitting in different chairs, walking up and down an imaginary timeline and stuff like that. And all of those techniques started life as conversations. What the creators of NLP did was figure out, is there an underlying structure to these conversations? Are there patterns taking place within these conversations that align with structures and patterns in the client's experience of the world? And therefore the words that are used within that conversation have an effect of change on the client. So for example, something as simple as the verb tense that you're using. If you're talking about a goal, your natural tendency will be to use future tense. You will say, what will you be doing? And so imagine that, and what will happen next, and when do you think you might start that, and how will you know when you've been successful, and so on. And it's all using future tense, and future tense is the language of possibility. So something as simple as, once you've made reference to the goal, then talking in present tense, or even past tense, moves the client's representation of that goal into a space of, well, what's the difference between talking about something in the future and talking about something in the past or the present?
Known.
It
makes it current rather than an aspiration.
Yes.
It becomes the language of now and being in it.
Yes. And we talk about things that are happening now in a different way than we talk about things that are in the past and the future. So something as simple as shifting verb tense and talking about it in the past or present is totally invisible to the casual observer. But what it does is it makes that exploration of the goal far more concrete and real for the client. And that's very important in terms of the client's representation of reality, their mental map of the world. The brain is a map of reality. It doesn't contain a map of reality, it is a map of reality, represented through our senses. And the brain doesn't just contain one map of reality, it contains as many as you can imagine, because you can imagine all of the things. So when you set out, who came here from home tonight? And who came here from work? So before you set out on your journey to come here, did any of you think, oh, can we bother to go tonight, or it's cold, or something? I'll tell you what. And then you think that. So you tried out multiple realities. You thought, oh, what's it going to be like? Oh, it might be boring. Oh, I've read a book about NLP. I don't know. And you have these kind of conversations with yourself. And what you're doing is you're simulating multiple realities. And then one of those realities, one of those simulations, coalesces into the physical world. And you take action, you get in your car, you get on the bus, whatever, and here you are. So the evidence that I have, as well as anybody has, but if I'm in the role of coach, the evidence that I have that you made a goal and that you took action to achieve that goal is that I can see you. And it's as simple as that. And we can sit with our clients and talk about all the things that they might do in the future till the cows come home. What are they going to do? That's what we're trying to do as coaches, is get people to the point of action. And we could argue that the coaching session is over when the client is ready to take action. And that could be 5 minutes in. That something shifts in their awareness and they think, do you know what? I'm going to email that guy right now and I'm going to tell him, whatever, I'm going to do whatever. And if they want to do something, as I often say to coaching clients, that the value in coaching isn't what we do in the coaching session, it's what you do in between sessions. So the shorter we can make the coaching sessions and still get paid the same, the better, really, because we're maximising the focus on action rather than the focus on, no, you've got to have a coaching session and we've got to explore all this stuff with you. So setting goals is important. So the people who created NLP, they modelled people who were very effective at creating change in others, and they did that through conversation. But then in order to teach those principles, they were converted into physical, practical techniques that you learn in a practitioner training. That doesn't mean that you carry on doing the techniques that way. They're all designed to be conversational. What those methods that you practice on a practitioner training, they're designed to help you learn the principle, not for you to actually apply it that way in real life. So I'll give you an example with one of the most obvious and basic and common things that you will do as a coach, which is goal setting. So it's one of the first things you'll do, I guess. In some way you will set a goal, ask the client, what do you want to get out of the coaching relationship, or what do you want to get out of this coaching session, something along those lines. That makes sense? Could I have somebody to help me with a quick demonstration, please, of goal setting? Anybody? Yeah, come on. Is Vicky, is that right?
Yes.
Nice to meet you, Vicky. So the goal setting process in NLP is called Wellformed outcomes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick conversation with Vicky where I'll be using well-formed outcomes, but you may not notice it if you haven't practiced it since you've done your practitioner training. And then I'll recap and show you where the technique actually is within the conversation. Is that okay with everybody if I do that? Great. So, do you have, you were talking earlier about your coaching studies, your portfolio you're putting together, and you seem very kind of like it's a challenge, but you seem to be quite pleased with yourself for what you've achieved in that.
Putting on a good game face there.
Is there anything related to that, or maybe something completely different that you're happy to talk about for a few minutes that you would call a goal, or something that you're interested in achieving, something we can explore quickly?
So yeah, I've got a kind of a half-formed goal, which is that I'd really like to complete a marathon. So that's kind of more on a personal level. Let's not talk about the coaching portfolio. Obsesses me for the rest of my time. So that little one.
So complete a marathon. And I mean, how do you go about doing that? I mean, presumably that's something you can just enroll and off you go.
Yeah. So I'm carrying quite a lot of baggage with this one, I'm afraid. So actually, it's something that I've attempted probably 3 or 4 times. Let me have a count. So London I completed, but I did about 5 miles of that walking. And then Berlin I signed up for, but had a bit of a leg injury halfway around, which was due to lack of training. And then the third time was Manchester, which was last year, and I completed half of it, which was kind of down to some medical stuff, so I'm not really too sort of hung up by that, but I feel like it's kind of this thing that I just want to do, but I'm not. Yeah.
So sorry, when you say complete a marathon, then those
Running.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like
all the way round.
You've done it before,
still
but
be
they
jogging.
didn't count. So
Yeah.
So be running all the way.
Yes.
So complete a marathon, be running all the way. Is there anybody that needs to help you with that? Is there anything that might get in the way of that?
So I think the thing that irritates me is that I tend to kind of have motivations. My motivation sort of comes in fits and starts. So January is great. You know, I'm out there 4 times a week. I've joined a running club. I've got some new trainers. You know, I'm kind of putting in the distance, and then it kind of drops off. And
sorry.
So I guess I'll kind of drop off with perhaps the longer runs, or kind of not pushing myself to go. And really, I know that in order to kind of keep pushing.
Do you think that's
further,
been connected? Is that in some way connected with some of the issues you've had with past marathons that you've entered? So the injury or the health issues and so on?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a certain amount of luck on race day, if I'm honest. So if I think back to London, it was literally the hottest week of the year. It was just that really weird year where we had, and I'd stayed with friends and they were up all night drinking, and even though I wasn't, I didn't sleep very well. So, yeah.
So is it actually completing the marathon it sounds like there's a step before that, which is something around the preparation for it. So what is it within the preparation that you would find it useful to focus on?
Yeah, so maybe it's about, so maybe kind of, before the day, there's probably a little bit more I could do to make sure that, I'm talking kind of more than 10 years ago for London, so I don't think I would, stay at a mate's necessarily. I'd probably stay somewhere a bit quieter.
So there's preparation immediately before, and then there's a bit longer term preparation around training and
the training.
So is there something around that's a more sort of intermediate step for you?
Yeah, so it's probably just around actually running further in advance of race day.
And what do you feel would give you whatever it is that you need that would enable you to run further before the race day?
This is a bit I struggle with, because I devise these amazing training plans, and I put them everywhere, and I set reminders. And
just actually getting out there and do it. So what do you think it is that what do you feel it's missing that means that you don't get out and do the longer practice or runs that you want to do?
I don't know. Sorry, I'm not thinking about this very well, am I?
I think you were thinking about it very well, but I think you seem to be struggling to articulate it.
Yeah.
What do you feel is stopping you from getting out and doing those practice runs?
I don't know, sometimes it is a little bit boring, it does take over your life, so having to kind of really prioritise it. I think maybe there's like a disparity between kind of, me as this person where I think, great, I'll, do all these really long runs and I'll be super athletic, and then the reality where actually I just like to drink wine and have a lie-in. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a bit of that going on.
So what is it you feel that's missing that will enable you to focus on those longer practice runs?
So I think there's definitely something about yeah, kind of maybe connecting in with like why I actually want to do this still. And I think it's just this like real stubborn thing within me that I feel like I haven't done it to the standard that I want to do it, and I feel like I have to achieve that.
And I felt a kind of surge of something then that I might call excitement or energy in some way. So if I was to give you the ability or whatever it is that you need to really connect with that sense of why you're doing it, well, would you take it?
Yeah.
Bit of hesitation there.
I think I was just trying to understand your question.
So if I was to give you something, some
Yeah.
resource, something that allows you to really focus on and connect with that sense of why you're doing it, what that purpose is, what it gives to you,
Yeah.
would you take it? What is it you really want? And you kind of touched on it just there. Is it something around proving that you can...
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, so there's probably more going on there, I don't know.
So if I can give you something,
Yeah.
some resource, some ability that's going to enable you to
Yeah.
prove
Mhm.
that you can do this,
Yeah,
would you take it?
yes.
Okay, great. So there we go. That's well-formed outcomes within a very short conversation. Did anybody spot the technique? So anybody know what the 4 criteria of well-formed outcomes are? So basically,
In any particular order or random?
it's a bit like a statement being well-formed in grammar. If an outcome, if a goal or an outcome is well-formed, it meets certain criteria. If it meets those certain criteria, then the person is more likely to achieve exactly what they had in mind with minimum effort and frustration. Those 4 criteria are positive. So it's something that she wants as opposed to something that she doesn't want. So I didn't have to ask her if it was positive because she said, I want to complete a marathon. She didn't say, for example, I don't want to walk around the marathon again. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And to Rachel's point about clients who know what they don't want as opposed to what they do want. So she was already talking in the positive, so I didn't have to ask her because she was already doing it. Second criteria is under your control. Did anybody spot the question that I asked to check if this was under her control?
Did she need help? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Is anybody else that's going to
Is
help
there
you with
anybody else that
this?
you'd need?
Is there anything that's going to stop
Yeah.
someone doing it? And because she talked about things she's already doing, like running clubs, she's already practicing and doing stuff. So it's basically something that she can do
New
by
trainer.
herself.
Sorry? New trainer.
It's rubbed my feet so I can't run now because I've got a really big blister.
Oh.
Just saying.
The third criteria is that it's real, that she can see, hear and feel what it is to achieve that. The reason this is important is because the equipment that we have for gathering information about the outside world is our senses, or at least 22 of them that we have. And so our reality is represented through our senses. So we don't have a sense of money, we don't have a sense of time, we don't have a sense of spreadsheets, we don't have a sense of project plans. What we have a sense of is something we can see, something we can hear, something we can touch, and so on. And so if we can express a goal in primary sensory terms, then what the brain is doing as a comparison machine, saying, take action. Does the world match my expectation? No. Well, keep on taking action. So in order to kind of program that pattern matching, it's like if you're looking for something, but you don't exactly know what it is you're looking for, it's kind of hard to find. Whereas if you go out to the shops, for example, and there's a very specific thing that you want, it's very easy to find. And if you lost something and somebody asks, do you need some help? You say, I'm looking for this thing from my computer. It's like a little cable, black thing like this. It's like a big thing at one end. And so very specific about what you're describing, then you're helping them to identify it.
Pattern matching being the sense that I'm imagining or visioning a situation, and therefore that's a sense, and then that's something real I can connect with. Is that
Correct.
what you mean?
Yes, something real you can connect with, and something that the mechanism of your brain
Mm.
will organise your behaviour to
Right.
to achieve.
Right. Okay.
So, like you deciding to come here this evening,
Yeah.
and you thought about where you'd got to come, you've been here before perhaps, so you kind of knew the way, or you had to look it up on your sat-nav or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is you imagined an outcome, and you didn't have to do anything to achieve that outcome, not consciously. Your brain is
No obstacles.
Exactly, your brain is a mechanism for resolving difference between these maps.
So does that mean that you would know when you'd got it?
Yes. So I don't need to ask that question, how will you know when you got it? Because she was telling me.
Yeah.
And the final thing is ecological, which basically means that it's 100% good. So have any of you ever done something like gone for a promotion at work? And as much as you wanted it, there was something also pulling you away. And have you seen people at work do things like they've been told that an internal job is basically theirs, but all they've got to do is apply for it, and they kind of accidentally don't apply, or they miss the deadline, or something, and you think, how could you, what's... Because they've got these different competing drivers or outcomes pulling them in different directions, some working for, some working against. If there's some part of you that objects to or is compromised by you achieving this goal, that part of you won't be quiet. It will exert a counterforce, which means you've got to put more energy and effort into getting to where you want to be. And did you spot the ecology check? That was probably the most obvious one.
Two or three.
If I could figure out what that is, if you can give me the words to use, and so if I could give that to you now, would you take it, basically? And twice we saw her hesitate, and she hesitated simply because the answer is no.
Yeah.
So when we ask somebody, if I could give it to you now, would you take it? And they say, yeah, that's a no. And then the third time, when we got to the essence of why she's doing the marathon, and it was to prove that she could do it, then we got a much more congruent response. So what we could do, we could have gone through that in a very techniquey way and said, is that positive? Is it under your control? What do you see when you achieve a marathon? What do you hear? What do you feel? If I could give that to you now, would you take it? And the point is the client then knows you're doing something to them. Whereas within a conversation, I think as you can see, this is something that you could do with anybody, anytime. In fact, most of the time I would just, with somebody, just go straight for the ecology check. So relating to marathons, what would you now say your goal is around doing a marathon?
Yes, I think it's connecting in with that feeling at the end of a really long race, and that it's almost kind of it's a really weird feeling, but it's kind of like being completely empty and depleted of everything, and yet feeling completely like you've achieved like the biggest thing at the same time. And it's that kind of like exhaustion that you like. I haven't come across that in any other sort of environment or situation.
And if I could give you that feeling now, would you take it?
Well, I'd want to have earned it, I
You
think.
want to earn it. And that's connected with the proving. So yeah, there's no doubt she wants that feeling, but she wants to earn it. And that's something that nobody else can give her. So fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky.
Excellent. So these are the 4 well-formed outcomes criteria. And as I say, in practice, I would usually just go straight for the ecology check. Because if the other 3 are there, you're more likely to pass the ecology check anyway. If you fail the ecology check first time, then you're probably looking at this one, under your control. It's where most people will get stuck. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll ask for a goal, or they'll focus on a goal like get a promotion, or move house, or sell my car, or get more coaching clients. for example. So how many of you would say that your goal for this year is to get more coaching clients? Do your clients have a say in this? So we know that as soon as somebody's talking about a goal that involves some kind of interaction with some other person, it's not under their control. And therefore what we've always got to focus then on is what is the first step that you can take that is under your control. So for example, for you, the goal of get more clients this year, what might be the first step that you could take that might lead you to that is under your control? What kind of first steps could you take?
Marketing of some sort.
Marketing. So you can sit there and you can write blogs, and you can't control whether anybody reads them,
No.
but you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can express your ideas and you can position yourself, and it's probably more likely to get some result than not doing it.
Yeah.
So we can't guarantee it will be effective, but it's probably going to be more effective than doing nothing. Good. What other examples, what other first steps might you take?
Testimonials.
Getting testimonials.
Actually ask for them.
Ask for them. Yeah, exactly. Ask for them. You can ask. They can always say no. So it's not under your control to get it, but if you frame the outcome as asking for, then what's important? An outcome is not so much about a fixed goal. It's not about getting to an end point. It's about setting a direction. So, for example, that's a really nice example that you've given there, asking for testimonials. Because what are the things that you have to do in order to ask somebody for a testimonial?
You have to have done it, I guess.
You have to have done something worth them giving feedback on, which means you have to have had a client. Yeah, what else do you have to do?
You have to approach them, speak to them.
You have to approach them, speak to them.
You have to have done a good job.
You have to have done a good job. You have to engage them in a conversation about what they liked about working with you.
It occurs to me that it's worth doing even if I didn't do a good job,
Yes,
because I would learn from it.
you definitely. And all the things that you've got to do, some of those probably scare you.
Yeah.
The idea of picking up the phone and calling a client who you haven't seen in a year and asking for a testimonial could be a bit scary for some people.
Might get more business, they might say, oh, I want to see you again.
And they might say, oh, you just called it there. I was just talking about you. Or something, and that does happen. It happens when you pick the phone up. It absolutely doesn't happen when you don't pick the phone up. It doesn't happen every time you pick the phone up, but you greatly increase your chances. So the point is, we set a direction with ask for testimonials. Accidentally, a whole lot of other useful things have got to happen, that even if we don't get a testimonial, or the testimonial that we'd really like to get, we've still actually achieved a lot of other very useful things. So setting a direction has a huge value in and of itself, even if we don't get the thing that we set out to get. Excellent. What else can we talk about? Client lacks confidence. That's a really interesting one, because what I'll do, so Rachel mentioned that she came to my presentation at the NLP conference on something called meta model. So if you don't know, within NLP, meta model is one of the two language models within NLP that's about gathering information about the client's internal representation of the world. And doing that through the way that they represent their internal reality on the outside. And they do that in two ways. Firstly, through their behaviour, and secondly, through their language. And there's a structure in their language that maps onto the structure of their behaviour. So a client could to tell you something about their situation. From that you would know what their internal reality is. From that you could say, I bet when you go to a meeting the very first thing you do is X, Y, Z, and they'll say, yeah, how did you know that? Well, because you didn't realise that you just told me, because if that's the underlying structure of your reality, that will cover everything that you do. You know, as they say, the way we do one thing is the way that we do all things, because it's built on those underlying templates or structures. So client lacks confidence is a nice example where we might apply meta model, because if the client says, I want some confidence, well, is confidence a thing that they can get? Where do you get that from? So rather than treating it as, oh yeah, confident, I know I can do some confidence building exercises with them,
When you asked the question, where do they get it from, I was thinking experience. You need to do something, don't you, to gain experience.
What does the word confidence mean? Where does it come from? Con means with, fide means
Trust.
trust, with trust. And we can't trust ourselves. And we can't love ourselves or value ourselves or carry ourselves. Just like we can't tickle ourselves. The point being that in the structure of language, a thing can't be in two places at the same time. So the speaker can't be the subject and the object at the same time. So I can value something else, or someone else can value me, but I can't value myself. So what I have to do to value myself is do it by proxy. I have to value myself through seeing the impact that I have on others. So at the end of a great session with a client, and the client's really excited and they've got some fantastic goals, and they're saying, oh, it's been amazing, this coaching's changed my life, you feel good, right? Because what they are doing is reflecting back to you things that you find valuable about you. That's completing a feedback loop, a cycle. What we can't do is value ourselves. In order to value, we need three things. We need a valuer, a thing to be valued, and we need one other thing.
Comparison?
Kind of, a unit of currency.
Yeah.
So yes, we need some criteria, yes, like a comparison. And the valuer will be making a comparison, of course, because they'll be judging based on his, like Antiques Roadshow. Oh, it's, it'd be worth more if it had the original keys and if it was in better condition. So they're making comparisons, of course. So, so if the client lacks confidence, where do they get that from?
Doing things they value?
Yes. The confidence, if we take its literal meaning with trust, to trust.
They need
What?
people who will trust them.
Yeah, so they want people to trust them, and that's got to start with them,
Trust themselves.
not themselves,
Mm.
other people. So if, for example, they want to get a promotion or get some training course paid for or something like that at work, and that involves a conversation with their boss, when they say, I want the confidence to go and have the conversation with my boss, what they really mean is, I want to trust that my boss will be nice to me and say yes. The paradox is, it's in the future. So how do we trust things that have not happened yet?
Imagine it.
We can imagine it, yes. So we can get them to do a practice, a mental rehearsal, something like that. We can play out alternatives. One of the most useful things we can do is play out the alternatives that they most fear. Because imagining it going really well, it's not under their control. It's pointless. So to imagine what's going to happen when the boss says no, then what? And getting them to practice contingencies is actually more practical. And we arrive at that point by meta-modelling the word confidence and figuring out they can't trust themselves, therefore who are they trusting? Their boss. To do what? Because we don't trust people unilaterally, do we? We trust them to do something. So trust is about predicting the future. More typically, it's about people trying to control the future. So we all engage in rituals to try and control the future. You've even done it tonight. You imagined on the way here what this would be like. Are you aware of having done that?
Yep.
Excellent. So we try and control the future by predicting it, and one of the things that our brains innately do is predict the future, is run these simulations, these future scenarios, and then the one which seems most likely or most desirable coalesces into action, and that action changes the world, and we either create what we want or we don't, and we keep trying. Excellent.
So, with the confidence, and you
Yes.
talk about not being able to trust ourselves but trust others, does that not encourage us to be defined by what other people think? And so when
And
things
we
might
are.
go badly,
We
then
are defined by what
But
other people
that's
think,
scary.
starting with our
That's-
parents.
that's kind of scary to think that you become, I believe that, I'll do scary things, I'll push myself out of my comfort zone, and if it goes wrong, well, okay, at least I tried. So I can have my own confidence, and I don't need to rely on others necessarily.
Confidence to
have a go.
To have a go.
Yeah.
Based on your expectation that what's the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
If they say no,
yeah,
I'll have another go. So if we met at a, well, what do you do?
What do I do?
If we met at a party or something, so
okay.
what do you do?
I'm a leadership coach.
You're a
leadership
coach. It's defined by other people. You've told me what you are based on what you do for other people. So whenever we give ourselves a job title or a role is defined by a relationship. You can't be a leadership coach by yourself. Although if you read LinkedIn, there's plenty of six-figure coaches who don't seem to have so, I don't know what currency they're counting in. Yugoslavian lira or something. So we define ourselves by relationships. When we talk about leadership, leadership isn't something that we do, it's a relationship that we have with people who choose to follow us somewhere.
It's a contact spot.
Yes. So this is an example of applying metamon to something the client says. The client says something and we think, what does that tell us about their map of reality? It tells us they're trying to control the future. Why would somebody try to control the future?
If they don't like the present.
They don't like the present, or they...
Safety.
Safety, exactly.
Yeah, safety and certainty.
Because we do things all the time without thinking about whether we're confident enough. We can't happy to brush our teeth in the morning or put the TV on or whatever. And don't, I'm not confident enough to brush my teeth. We do things that we know that we can do without having to think about it. But when confidence becomes an issue, it's because we're trying to control what somebody else is going to do, how they're going to respond to what we want, or specifically what we want them to do, which is usually say yes. So, just by understanding what the structure of the word is, what the structure of the language is, we can get a great insight into the client's representation of reality very quickly, which A, saves us a lot of time and a lot of questions, B, really impresses the client. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. What I mean by that is the client thinks, wow, this person really gets me, so I've got nothing to lose by opening up, which is a useful foundation.
So if your reality is that, so I'm speaking with someone who's had a bit of a work trauma scenario, which was everything going well and then one situation goes bad and then lots of confidence is knocked and so on, and is now facing a similar situation, or doesn't want the same thing to happen in the new role in a year's time.
Perfect. Yeah.
And the contract's up in a year's time, but could be extended. And all the worries around, I could do everything so well, and then the last minute something doesn't go quite right, and she's had another tiny experience which has thrown a lot of doubt in there. So the internal dialogue is the confidence. She's talked about confidence a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you go from giving up? You've got to trust others to see what's in you, and is it about just how she manages herself in that environment?
Well, it's a learning experience, isn't it? And you're quite right. You can do everything right and still not get what you want. Because there are other people around you also doing everything right.
So it's letting go of that need.
Letting go of the attachment to a specific goal, a specific result.
It's outside your control.
Yeah, that's outside of the control. So focusing on what is under your control. Focusing on what was it that she did last time that caused that to happen. And is she going to do those same things again? Probably not. So what was she going to say?
And other managers around in their situations, it was their response in a situation that was
which is
she can't control.
Yeah,
so
she can't
it all comes back to this control thing.
Yeah, so again, focusing on what she can do, what she can act on, what she can control, and taking every step as a learning experience. Yeah, and that's not an easy, it's not a nice soundbite, but that's that's reality, unfortunately. Excellent. So what about, we had an interesting thing happen in the conversation with Vicky when we were getting very early on to the real issue, and it wasn't about running a marathon. And did you notice there was a hesitation, there was a moment of discomfort, which was connected very early on, but was connected with this idea of proving, and it was a glimpse of the impact of failure the first time. And what happened is I asked Vicky what that was, and she said, I don't know. So I guess this relates as well to your point, where the client knows what they don't want. They can't articulate what they do want. So when I asked Vicky whatever the question was, what that thing was, and she said, I don't know, did she mean I don't know? What she probably meant was, I do know, but I don't want to say.
But did that then come out right at the end? Because I have to say, it was that final bit that said, I like to be depleted, but I've been challenged, and I've used up everything in me.
Yeah.
Because before that I was thinking, well, why don't you just do multiple smaller ones and just go and it was that in that little bit of insight at the end is you want to be used up and just spent because you've done everything you possibly can.
And that was a very physical, real description, and she was speaking from experience.
Do short ones faster, maybe?
Peter, I think I noticed you then talking about feeling rather than thinking to actually get us somewhere else.
Yes.
So whether it be somatic or
I think I said something like, I think
there was a feeling question in there.
Yeah, she said something about I don't think so, or some I can't remember exactly, but something relating to thinking. So
I think I did have I can't remember what your question was, but I did have a realisation that it wasn't known to me. And then because then you were talking to the group and then we came back to the coaching session, I had connected in with what that was, and that allowed me to see what I needed to do next.
Yeah.
So, but that was quite a surprise for me, which is why I think I felt, or maybe I felt emotion at that point.
And the route to completing a marathon.
There was a shift in energy as well.
Yes, very much. So the route to completing a marathon.
Very great.
So the route to completing a marathon is very different to the route to thoroughly earning that feeling of elation and depletion, and knowing that you've achieved that you can do it. The end result is you run across a finishing line and people take pictures of you, and to an external observer it looks no different. But the route to get there is very different.
I thought it was quite interesting that in the early stages it felt very two-dimensional, and it felt like actually you wanted to have achieved the marathon rather than to achieve it. And then once the emotion came in and the feeling came in, you started to own it.
Yeah.
Instead of it being for the benefit of showing off to other people or proving to other people something, not showing, proving it. It turned into something that was more for you.
Yeah.
Definitely. And if all we do is just keep on dragging the client back to these 4 points and just keep on checking, we'll get to that point very quickly. Because making plans, as Vicky said, she's done planners, and she'll have a look at them or she won't. But if we get the client to the point of action, then they no longer need to make plans. The plan is already there. Just put your shoes on, go out for a run, basically. Yes, I'm sure there's more to it.
It really isn't.
I mean, you've got to eat the right things, and there's other lifestyle changes. You've got to make the time for it. I mean, running that distance takes a long time, so you've got to set time aside. So there's a lot of practical considerations as well, but fundamentally it's something that you can do. Excellent. Client going round in circles, why do they do that?
It's too frightening to take the final plunge.
Yeah, that if they keep approaching some barrier, they will bounce back and circle round to what feels like a start point again.
It could be to do with habit, bad habit, or something like that.
Well, that's a little bit like Vicky saying the reason for not doing it was because it was boring. Boring, I would suggest, again, if we apply a meta model, so you'd have to follow me with a bit of a leap of logic here. Being bored is about being engaged in something that isn't making you feel valued or worthwhile or valuable. And so we say, oh, I don't like that, it's boring. What we really mean is, if I do that, then I feel worthless. So we avoid it, call it boring, and then nobody can argue with that. It's like a teenager's universal get out of jail card. It's like, I don't want to do that, it's boring. There was a guy asked me to work with his son, who one of the things that came out in the conversation with him, he was 19 I think, was that he was doing, his dad was taking him to work to do some work experience with him occasionally. And he said there was stuff that he was getting him to do, like copying numbers in spreadsheets or something. He found it boring and didn't want to do it. And by boring, what he really meant was just sitting there copying spreadsheets all day is, you know, that's the kind of thing that certain people do, and I don't want to be like that. And, you know, so that feeling of, well, to be blunt, that feeling of worthlessness. I'm sure we've all been in jobs. How many of you are self-employed right now? So if you are self-employed right now, is it because at some point you were employed in a job where you had that horrible feeling of worthlessness?
Well, not being valued.
Not being valued.
I had a deep sense of my worthwhileness.
And that conflict.
And it was not congruent with my surroundings. It seemed to be a fantasy unless I exploited it somewhere else.
So yeah, fundamentally the client's going to go around in circles because they hit something that they can't see beyond. And we could call it fear, we could call it the unknown, we could call it whatever metaphor you want that the client's happy with. But it's a point that they cannot see beyond. Not because they don't have the ability to see beyond, but because they don't like the feeling of what potentially sits on this other side. And so what they will do is, they'll then get into performing for you, agreeing to action, saying, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to try and, yeah, I'm going to try and do that, yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, totally. And again, if we go back to well-formed outcomes, the clue is when we set an action, or when the client sets an action, you know, before the next session, and we say, so, you know, if you, I mean, let's say for the sake of argument that your coaching sessions are a week apart. And you say, so if we're sitting here next week, and I say to you, so how did you get on with that? What will you say? Ah, well, it's definitely, I'll just try and have a good, yeah, I'm certainly, I mean, it's great. Yeah, definitely trying to, yeah, definitely make, there are two answers. When we ask a client a yes, no answer, there are only two possible answers that they can give us. Anything other than that is a no. So does anybody like listening to the Radio 4 comedy panel show Just a Minute?
Yes.
So the rules of Just a Minute are to speak for a minute without
Hesitation,
deviation,
repetition.
I find that a fantastic rule of thumb for coaching sessions. That when you ask a client a question, they will either answer the question or they won't. So if you hear hesitation, deviation or repetition, what does that tell you?
Very good.
It's a no.
It tells you it's a no. It tells you are getting very close to this, the thing that's going to push them away, the thing that will cause them to not achieve the goals that they set for themselves, to not achieve the results that they want, to not make the changes that they want. What will then happen is they will ultimately end up dissatisfied with their progress in the coaching relationship, and who will they blame for that?
See, I'm wrestling a little bit with what you're saying there, because I think you got to bring your client to that barrier of discomfort, and right where they don't want to go, to step into the unknown, because otherwise they will never get to the other side. So I promise my clients discomfort, and I ask them to sign up for it. Otherwise,
I tell my clients that there will be times when they absolutely hate the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they can't stand me, but I promise them that I will always be on their side. But it won't always feel like that.
So I think that is where, for me, safety comes into to create the stepping stone to move into.
Safety is one way.
Yeah,
safety is one way to do it.
It probably is my natural.
Yeah, exactly, and I think how you do that is a matter of performance for the coach, not a matter of technique. How we get the client to here could be about safety, could be about energy, could be about all kinds of different things. And that's your style as a coach, your performance, the relationship you create with your clients. And that may be no more or less effective than another way of doing it. The point is, you're quite right. What we've got to do is get the client there, and to get them there, we've got to hold them and stop them from running back, which is their inclination.
Sometimes you don't want to take away that wall because it's too scary. You can shrink it, so they can start to look over the top.
It's inevitably, because you can guarantee that this will not be the first time that they've approached that. So what they've done
Sometimes
100
they've got
times
some
before,
really good techniques for keeping it there.
and what they've done 100 times before is run up and have a peep over it.
Yeah.
And therefore, the reason that they are paying you is because they expect you've got some magic tricks that enable them to get over it without the pain. That may be true, may not. Can I have somebody else to help me with a quick, what are we doing? We're finish at 9, is that right? Can I have somebody else to help me with a very quick demo? Is it going to be?
I will.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Going to the lines.
And I'm trying to remember, it was Diane. Diane. Nice to meet you, Diane. Nice. How many snakes up to Diane?
This is my problem.
So if, very quickly, if we were to have, you look scared already.
I know.
If we were to have a very quick coaching session, what would you want to put at the top of the agenda?
I would want to be able to work through and identify my ideal customers, clients, for both coaching and my strategic HR work, because I'm struggling with it. So it's real.
Struggling with identifying your ideal clients, or struggling with getting enough clients?
Both.
Is identifying the ideal clients a step towards getting more clients?
Yes.
Okay. I felt that. What is stopping you from doing that?
I know that I need more clients. I know that I'm comfortable and want to develop and put into practice all the coaching that I've started and developed. But I also enjoy the profession.
Hesitation, deviation, or repetition?
Or all of those.
Has she answered my question?
No, not yet.
No. What was my question?
Repeat the question.
What was my question? From
Stopping you.
Identifying your ideal
Get
client.
more clients.
what is stopping you from identifying your ideal clients in order to have more clients?
Because it seems a bit difficult.
What is it that seems difficult about it exactly? Did you see what she just did then? Did you see the state change?
Yeah.
Hesitation, deviation, or repetition?
You know, straight.
Deviation. What was she trying to do?
Tell you of the scent.
Yes.
And the
Yes,
dismissal.
dismissal, absolutely.
She went
Headbutted away.
she went into tough HR director mode and tried to throw me off track.
Shook it out.
Yes, very good. Well spotted. What is stopping you from identifying your ideal clients in order to have more clients?
Because I don't think I know how to actually segment them.
Right. In order to identify, just thinking logically about this, in order to identify the ideal client for you, I guess you've got to also identify who you are the ideal service provider for.
Yes.
So there's something about identifying what's really fantastic about you and being able to articulate that before you can then figure out who that matches up with.
Yeah.
So how are you, or where are you up to with articulating what's so amazing about you?
I sometimes feel it's very random. So I'm out there on LinkedIn. I've done.
You're out there on LinkedIn.
I'm out there on LinkedIn. I've
In
done
your-
3
in your
videos
spare
in
bedroom.
response to challenge to my and all this sort of stuff. And it doesn't seem planned. It feels random to me, and maybe that's because.
So it feels random, hesitation, deviation, or repetition?
Repetition.
And deviation as well. Unplanned. So it's reactive. That's telling us it's reactive. So something's provoking her to do a video. It's not something that she sat down and thought, right, Monday morning I'm going to make some videos. So it's reactive. So what is it that you are reacting to when you make those videos? What is that feeling that...
It feels that I need to be doing something that others are doing.
Right. And because if you were to do something that others were doing, that would make you...
Make you really successful.
Therefore, what stops you from being really successful is...
I don't know that I'm always being authentic to what I've got to do.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Excellent. What would be authentic for you?
She's hot.
Hesitation, deviation, or repetition?
I've got the courage to say what I really think.
What do you really think?
Well, it could be about anything, I mean.
Pick one thing.
It might be responding to something else that I've seen even, or about a comment that I want to have about the value of coaching. And I think sometimes I'm more concerned about what somebody else's reaction might be. Will this land well?
Right, excellent.
In the public arena.
So this is about predicting the future, specifically controlling the future and other people's responses,
Absolutely.
so they will like her and hire her as a consultant. And so the reactiveness of the videos, the difficulty in identifying the target clients or the ideal clients, it all kind of fits together. Do you see how that sort of fits together? And it's very difficult for you to identify an ideal client when you are not being one person true to yourself, because it's identifying an ideal client for who. So the ideal client for you, I'm going to guess, is somebody who appreciates and values your authenticity and the outrageous things that you feel like saying. And if you were to say those outrageous things, then some people would say, well, I don't like that, I was terribly offended.
Yeah.
And some people would say, wow, I like that.
Something just came into my head then as well about sometimes pleasing people and pleasing lots of people, and that could be within future clients, but it could be past, it could be family and stuff like that, wanting to be accepted. Maybe that carries on into what I'm doing there a bit. Maybe.
It's plausible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's plausible. So I just wanted to show you how easily and quickly we hit this, and how easily the client will push you off in all kinds of directions, and the hour's coaching session will be gone like that, and you'll think, what do we achieve? Because they will lead you all over the place to avoid confronting this, and in that short-term moment they will feel better for not having faced that fear, but in the long run they will feel dissatisfied that they didn't get to where they thought the coaching would take them. And therefore, exactly, what's your name, sorry? Elka. Exactly as Elka said, if you're not comfortable with being in that horribly uncomfortable place, then they will run you all over the place. They'll have you going in circles and feeling like, yeah, but we had a really good conversation in the end, and I know we didn't get do the things that were on the agenda, but it was a really useful conversation. We explored all these other things, and it was really great. And then that's you kind of making excuses really for because as a coach you want to be the most effective. You got into coaching because you wanted to support people and help people and help them make changes and overcome challenges and all that sort of stuff, not just to sit there and have a nice chat. And what have you learnt from this short conversation that we've had?
I can't deviate.
You're very welcome to.
There's not much point really. I mean, the reason that I volunteered was because it's a genuine issue for me.
Yeah.
And even, to be honest, sitting here and sort of saying it is quite opening. Maybe I can't do words, it's revealing to me, sort of thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, I've learned that I've got to be more true, or don't have to be true to myself, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get to the nitty-gritty of who is it that I want to be helping, or who would benefit from any skill that I have.
Yeah. What do you feel like doing as a result of this conversation?
I feel like going home and writing out in my, because that's how I would do it. What's the difference that I want to make And therefore, how do I then speak about that?
Yeah, well, that's a very different feeling, thinking about that. That's a great feeling. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, if you've done NLP training, you may have seen some NLP stuff going on there, or you may not. But really fundamentally, this is about rapport. So if you've done practitioner training, or even maybe you've done it in your coaching training, where you are trained to get into rapport with people, stop it.
Yes.
Stop it.
Absolutely.
We are a social species. We are built to interact, and we are built to be in rapport. And you'll know this if you've ever been in a shopping centre and those people are there with clipboards trying to get you to sign up for a direct debit for charities or sell you a credit card. You make eye contact with them from 200 yards away, and speaking to them is then unavoidable. So we're built to be in rapport. I think the real art for you as a coach is not routinely creating rapport, because you don't have to, you've already got it. It's having the ability to break it, to manage the degree of rapport that you have. Because you can be in rapport with a client, but if they're going around in circles, or if they're in a place that's not productive, you're not able to help them. And I guarantee you, almost all the times that you feel stuck and you don't know what to do next, it's because the client is stuck and you're in rapport with them. And if that's the case, you can do one of two things. You can either break rapport, or just physically move, do something else, change the subject. Secondly, I'm going to give you one of these for free tonight. It's Pocket Unsticker. The Unsticker is a tool, coaching tool I invented. It's random questions. There's a free smartphone app that you can get from the Google Play Store. And it generates random questions. And because the questions are random, they can't be constrained by the client's problem or their state of mind. And then the structure of the questions contains all of the NLP techniques and more, and attacks the problem from different angles and gets them moving again. So do take one of those with you. Hopefully this evening there's been something to show you a bit of NLP for if you don't have, if you've not seen it before, and if you have, something to show you a bit more about integrating within coaching. You shouldn't be able to see any tool that you bring into coaching, whether it's your understanding of psychometric profiles or psychodynamics or any kind of psychology or NLP or transaction analysis or anything else. The client shouldn't be able to see that in action, because for them it's, they're paying you for the conversation, the interaction, and your expertise in knowing those models and knowing those theories and those frameworks that are going to help them to move to where they want to be. What they're paying you for is where you get them to. And therefore you've got to take some responsibility for that. So in the old days, when life coaching first kind of came along in the early 2000s, and life coaches were taught to say, oh no, I didn't do anything, I'm just here to support you and you did all the work yourself. And the client's going to say, well, what am I paying you for then? If I'm doing all the work. You've got to take some responsibility for something. Yes, it's the client's goals, it's the client's resources, it's the client's responsibility to take action and so on. But you're the custodian of that space and that framework and that process, and the client expects you to earn you money to do that. And if you do that and you're able to focus on that, then my suggestion to you as a fellow coach is that's going to show you where your true value is in that interaction and enable you to feel really good about what you're doing, and then that attracts more of the kind of clients that you want to work with, and everybody's happy. I brought a few things along with me, so do take a pocket unsticker. I brought some little bits of paper with dates of upcoming training, so if anybody's interested. I kind of was imagining this evening as I was driving over here, and I imagined that there might be some people here who said, oh, I don't know anything about NLP, do you do free taster sessions? And I imagined me saying, no, I don't.
You did.
And that was it, as far as I got. I don't, but if enough people were interested, then I wouldn't mind putting on an NLP taster day one Saturday, something like that, if enough people are interested. I've got a signing sheet for my NLP newsletter, which is irregular and most entertaining.
It is most entertaining.
If you want to leave me your email address and for me to put it on my newsletter, then I will pick a name at random and you'll win your choice of one of my books. I've got about a dozen. There's I think 9 on the NLP website. There's a few there, you know, if you want to have a look at what they're like. So that's about all I can think of really. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, I'll be hanging around.
Can I ask a question? I was writing something down. Did you actually say stop building rapport?
Yes.
Rapport, break it.
Yeah, break it.
Yeah.
Breaks the state, gets them.
Because you naturally got a thing in rapport. You're in rapport with everybody. Practice breaking it.
And you said everybody builds rapport. I don't think they do. But it's 9 o'clock, so maybe that's another conversation.
But everybody, you may have been taught to build rapport. What I'm saying is everybody is in rapport, is able to get into rapport. You walk in here, you make eye contact with people, you smile, and you feel bad about pushing in front of somebody in a queue or something like that. So rapport is a social communication medium that enables us all to kind of look after each other as a social species and therefore increase our individual chances of survival. So it's a very, very powerful instinct. And if as a coach you can learn to kind of resist that instinct, I'm suggesting that's a valuable thing to practice.
Do you have anything specifically to read up and understand and learn more about a person's language and their representation of the inner world?
Yeah, there's a few. So my NLP website, which I don't know if you sent out a link or anything. No. I'll write it up. It's a short URL. So my NLP website has some articles on it that you can read up on. It's NLP.com. And my coaching website, where there's some other resources and stuff, is genius.coaching.
Cool. How very modest.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Well, do you know what genius means? Do you know what genius actually means?
I used to.
Genius, from Latin, the guardian spirit of a person present from one's birth. It literally means your inborn nature. We all are geniuses. It's a spirit that watches over us. How lovely.
How very nice.
If anybody's got any questions, otherwise take a card and email me. On the newsletter list if you want to win a book, and go on the newsletter. There's some books to look at. There's some bits of paper, as I say, with upcoming training days. I've got a coaching masterclass day on the 30th of March, which is about using projective coaching techniques. Basically using things like artistic stuff and watching people's behaviour and language and giving clients activities onto which they will project their internal reality, and then we can use that to interact with them on stuff that they can't articulate or they can't even put into words. It's so intangible, or it's difficult for them, emotionally difficult for them to put into words. So that's on the 30th of March. I've only got 5 places left on that, but the details are on there. Although, if there's a lot of interest, I'll run another one at some point. So, thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. Thank you all for coming along.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us tonight. We're just over an insight. I'd love to just get a couple of people just to share. What are you taking away from tonight? Just a couple of things would be really lovely.
I need to redo my NLP training.
Fantastic, thank you.
You need to consider NLP training.
There you go, so that'll do, won't it? Fantastic, you've got the guy here to do it. So just clarify, should have said at the beginning, Peter is a prolific author, and I've got several of his books and they're all brilliant, so would encourage you there. In the NLP taster session, how do people, because that's for the free book, isn't it? I'm just thinking, how can we facilitate that?
Well, we'll talk about that. If you've got enough interest, I'll
I can post them on the Facebook page or something. Yeah, okay, fantastic.
I do some of the courses at the conservatory at the back of the house. So I can take about 10 people, so I can do.
And you're very local, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just by the Shelley Retail Park.
Plug the own, as it were.
Is it on your website to be able to book into it or to look at it or?
Well, I haven't set one up, I just thought about it on the way here.
Oh, I see.
In anticipation that one of you might ask about
It's a taster for a taster session, isn't
Okay.
it?
Exactly.
But I can do an all
Which
day,
sense we
a
want
pure
to
NLP,
hear.
you know, just about NLP rather than NLP and coaching. So do a pure NLP taster session, do a few techniques and so on. You know, if you're interested, I can organise that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I always find that Peter is so generous and so giving. So genuinely, thank you so much for coming tonight. Really enjoyed it. And we'll post your links on our Facebook page as well. Thank you to you all, and thank you to our volunteers. I mean, I certainly got a lot out of it, and I hope it's been really useful for you. It certainly seemed like it was. So thank
Really
you for that as well.
interesting.
Really,
And we
really.
look forward to
Hearing how it happens.
As long as you don't get
No pressure.